Mallory, how have you enjoyed being in Portland? Is this your first time being in the Pacific Northwest?
Oh my gosh, I'm having the best time. It is not my first time. I have a couple friends that have lived in Portland or the Oregon area over the years. So I've been before, but let me tell you, I wish you guys were here right now. The weather is perfect. The fall leaves are beautiful. I'm just having the best time
And you got
ever.
to meet a husky as
And there's
well.
a cute dog right here. I wish you guys could see her. She's very adorable. So, yeah, suffice it to say, I'm having a great time.
That is good to hear. So, for those at home who may not be familiar, how did you get into acting, and how long you've been doing it for?
Oh yeah, so I started voice acting with Crunchyroll about 12 years ago. So I've been voice acting in anime for about 12 years, and I got into it. I really started through choir. So I was a huge choir nerd. I started in choir in fourth grade, and I was doing like city choirs and like regional Southwest, American choirs. And that really helped me sort of exercise my vocal cords, get used to using my voice. And then that transitioned into more musical theater and opera and then theater. And then all of that happened. And in college, I had a professor who said, Mallory, I think you should really consider a career in voiceover. And I took that advice to heart, which goes to show, your professors and your
And
teachers
they pretty
can.
much gave you that little nudge out the door in a sense.
Yeah, yeah, he really had an impact on my career. And so I took lessons, I recorded a demo, I got an agent, and getting my foot in the door at what used to be Funimation, now Crunchyroll, in some of these opportunities was some of the hardest parts. But here I am, 12 years later, and I'm so grateful for the journey.
Nice. So, a question I don't think I've ever asked when it comes to agents: how do you go about finding an agent? Do they find you? Do you find them? How does that process work?
Yeah, I think, one of the first hurdles that you'll experience in your voice acting career is getting an agent. And agents, I like to call them the keys to the career because they're the ones that have all of the connections to the opportunities. So whether it's a commercial or, an anime series or a video game, they oftentimes will work with those casting directors. And so having an agent is really how you start to get those auditions and opportunities. And for me, I was kind of playing this game of I don't want to apply for an agent too early, where I'm too green, where they say, no,
You wanted
she's
to
too
get some
green.
like we want to get some like experience in.
Exactly. So I ended up doing some local like TV commercials. One of the first commercials that I ever did was for snoring, like a CPAP machine. So I'm the voiceover in like a local CPAP machine commercial. It was for a friend of a friend. And I did a few of those opportunities. And then, taking lessons and recording a demo. And then I put together this little packet. I don't know if it's still this way when you apply for agents, but, it had my demo in it, had my resume, my headshot, a letter of intent. I had too much fun, like,
It's good to have a portfolio.
yeah, and putting it all together and giving it to them. And it was a tough first hurdle. My agent actually made me come in and do cold reads and perform a monologue. They really took it very seriously since they have a small roster of talent. And I've been with them for 12 years now.
Nice. So everyone knows you as Freerin. How did you come about getting the voice of everyone's favorable, lovable? Is she an elf?
Yes, she is. Yes. Gosh, I think it has many legs, I guess, of how Freerin, I was able to get the role of Freerin. Our director is Jade Saxton, who is an incredible voice
I feel like
actress.
I've heard their name before.
Yes, yeah, she's incredible. She's also a great director, and we had worked together on a very different show called High School DxD. So I was voicing Ross Weiss in that series, a very different character than Freerin, but that's where I think Jade and I really started to get to know each other. She got a sense of my abilities and my performance, and then she, was thinking of people for the roles and she thought of me, and so it was a really kind of wonderful surprise. I remember walking down the stairs in my house and getting the text of, you would you accept the role of Freerin in a show called Freerin? And I was like, oh my gosh, a title character, what, that's so
So
cool.
that was like your first like main character role?
I would say probably not. My first main character role maybe was a couple years into my career in a show that nobody knows about called Izetta the Last Witch. So I voiced Princess Fine. very cute show. Very, I really like it. Nobody ever knows about it, which makes me bummed out. But that one was really great, and I feel like that was my first step into main character energy. But voicing a title character where my name is the
Well, like
title
you're
of the
literally, and
series,
it's rare seeing animes or shows like the title of the character.
yeah, I mean, that was definitely a first for me. And so I was geeking out. I already knew it was going to be big. And then seeing the YouTubers who had reviewed the manga and were like, this is going to be really good. I just got so excited for what was to come.
Now, what's it like seeing people cosplay? Because I know with you being, go to cons, there's always a chance of seeing people cosplay. What's it like seeing people cosplay from the stuff you've voiced in?
Oh, it is so cool. I absolutely geek out every time I see a Frieren. If you see me on the con floor and you hear someone say, "Hi, Frieren," "Hi, Himmel," "Hi, Stark," that's probably me because I love to just call out any characters from the show that I see out there. There is so much creativity in cosplay. And honestly, I have so much respect for cosplayers because I tried once to like wear the Frieren wig and it was like, getting in my eyes and like it was itching my head. And so the creativity that I've seen, even here at KomoriCon, I saw a cosplayer who basically had a mimic backpack. It was giant, a huge mimic basically attached to her back. It was so cool.
Oh,
And she was giving out little tiny grimoires that were about this big, which was also very comical given how big the mimic was.
oh, I love it.
But yeah, the creativity is outstanding, and I love seeing so many Freerins at Comic Cons.
My last question. What kind of impact has this had on you, voicing? And I guess I'll also add into that, what type of advice would you want to give to someone who may want to get into this line of work? Because it may look easy to some, but others is like, like you've literally had to put in the work too.
Yeah, that's a great point. I would say, Freerin has really changed my life, and I really do mean that. Like when before I got cast as Freerin, I was going through a really hard time, similar to Freerin, where I was experiencing a lot of loss in my life of my beloved pet. We've got a dog sitting right here. My cat Mildred
Oh,
passed away. One of my good friends unexpectedly passed away, and I was just sitting with this loss. And so getting the role of Ririn, it it gave me hope again, and I think as Ririn kind of deals with the loss of people in her life, like that Himmel scene, just in the first episode, I was really crying
I
in the
saw that
booth.
and I thought that looks so depressing.
Oh, it was really emotional. The show makes you think about your own life and the passage of time. And when I reflect back on my career, I think the advice I'd give to people is, have perseverance, have that hope, because there were times when I would look around, and I'd see other actors winning, and I would go, oh, why can't that be me? And it's hard not to compare yourself to other actors, but each of us are on our own journey. And if you stay dedicated to your craft and your practice and getting better every day, and don't give up, have perseverance, wonderful things can happen. And I think Freerin and, my acting journey have taught me a lot about, the importance of
I mean,
perseverance.
there are some actors who have been like doing this since, like 30, 40 plus years, and they're still, you got someone like Peter Cullen who voices Optimus Prime who's been doing it for so long.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I tell the story sometimes of when I tried to get my first role at Funimation. I sent an email to a random email, and I was like, "Hi, I'm Mallory. I'm a voice actor. I'll be at your studio in 30 minutes. I'll do Walla, which are background noises in a scene. Whatever you need." It took them 4 years to finally respond to my email, and I got my first audition. So again, like, it's funny because there's so many parallels with the show Freerin and the passage of time, but having that commitment and that perseverance, I'm so glad I didn't give up.
Well, I'm glad you did. I mean, look where you are now. I think that should do it again. Mallory, thank
Todd,
you
how are we
so much.
Thank
enjoying
you.
KomoriCon? And is this your first time here in Oregon or for KomoriCon?
Oh yeah, thank you. You know what? Look how light that is.
I
Wow. So with KomoriCon, I've been for many years, and so it's great to be back because I love Portland. I love areas that really prioritize like environment and just taking care, being good to the world, to being good to their area, and that's definitely the vibe I get every time I come to Portland. I've come for a long time, just for both visiting and then just for conventions and stuff like that. So I have friends here and all that goodness. It's great.
So, mind telling those at home who may not, I know a lot of people are familiar with you, but there are those who live under a rock who aren't familiar. Mind telling some of the folks at home what you do and how long you've been doing it for.
Oh, well, I'm primarily in the voiceover universe, and so I direct shows and games and anime and cartoons and produce them and direct audiobooks and voice and all of those things. And I started on stage, which transitioned to on camera, and then voiceover is kind of the last thing that came along. I've been doing voiceover since before the iPhone was invented. I actually remember I was working on a show called D Gray Man that that was the show that I worked on when I first heard about the iPhone, because Sabat, it was at his studio, Chris Sabat, and Okatron 5000, and I was directing D Gray Man, and he came back into the room and he goes, I just got this thing called the iPhone. And he starts playing with it. And then I'm like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to go down that path. I'm fine with this. I had like a blackjack or something like that. And then my engineer got the iPhone. And then I was like, well, now I got to get it. So
well, if all the cool kids have it, I might
Yeah.
as well.
And so on a break, I went to go to the local spot that was right next to the studio, because at the time he was right by a mall. I went and got this new thing called the iPhone. So been doing it longer than the iPhone's been around.
So you said you've also produced and everything. What's it like from producing to voicing? Because I know in a way they're two whole different, almost like universes at this point.
Well, all of those things required a little bit of a different muscle. And I think that the same goes for acting. So sometimes you see a lot of people go from on camera acting to voiceover acting to on stage acting, but all of those are different sports. They're all sports, but they're all different. I mean, it'd be crazy to be like, well, he won the World Series. Let's go put him on a soccer field. Yeah, they're technically both sports, but they're very different. And so in a way, that's how I view the different layers of acting, the different types of acting. And that's why sometimes you see people try to make those transitions into other elements of other avenues of acting. And it's not always the most successful, because a lot of people think, well, it's all just acting. And then same goes with whether it's directing or producing. Those are all different facets of that universe, as you say. And so directing a film is very different than directing a play, different than directing an anime, etc. So all of those work different parts of the brain. And I've been very grateful that I've been able to have those adventures in those different avenues and see productions from all different aspects, and been able to work on all those aspects, from adapting scripts to writing scripts to every engineering shows that I've done almost every aspect of production except the actual hand-drawn animation. And it was something that I necessarily sought out. It was out of necessity, because I was like working on this thing and I'm like, oh man, I should just write this. How do I do that? So then I would go learn how to write it. And then I was like, oh man, I should direct this because blah, 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 this reason. So I'm going to go learn how to do that aspect. So it all came out of just the need to do that for whatever reason at the time. And I just kind of stuck with it.
Now, like you said, you've gone from on camera to stage to voice acting. What was the stage acting like and the on camera? Because I know, again, those are two different things compared to voice acting. I mean, you're still putting in a lot of work, but you're like, it's like, I know it's like the more physical type too.
Yeah, I mean they're all physical, because even with voice acting, I stand or voice act, and you get very, like, I was just working on a action adventure game, and by the end of it, I'm sweating. And so it's, oh yeah, and the
move your body to get that right.
Yeah, I do. Sometimes people can just sit and knock it out, but that's not me. With stage, I started when my first play was when I was 10 years old. And so then I did that and loved that, didn't know why, and then just kept with it. But the differences between those are, again, just different muscle groups. And so if you think of it as like, if you think the stage works the arms, the on camera works the legs, the voiceover works the neck, and like they all work different muscles of the same body, but they're all different. And so each one is its own discipline that you could spend a lifetime doing all of them, none of them, one of them, two of them. And so I really love all of those worlds. I spend a lot of time doing stage, and on camera. And I like to go back to those worlds if those opportunities existed. But with voiceover, not a complaint, but I am open to close in that world, and so there's really not bandwidth to do those other aspects, but they're definitely fun.
Now I know the characters you voiced over the years require a lot of yelling, and I don't think this is a question I think I've asked once. And I imagine it's also kind of hurt your voice with all the yelling you've done. What kind of advice would you want to give to someone who wants to get in a voice role that requires a lot of like loud speaking, yelling, stuff like that?
Well, I think it's just a matter of taking care of your mind, taking care of your instrument as you would anything. I mean, you stretch before you work out, or you should stretch before you work out. So you should warm up your voice before you dive in, especially on the loud stuff. And also the sessions themselves, if you've got a conscientious production team and director, they'll keep that in mind as too. So I was doing this game the day before coming here that was all yelling, a ton of yelling. And we broke that up into like, okay, let's get the small, least loud efforts and yells first, and then we'll save the big stuff and the deaths until the end, where literally on fire or literally breathing fire. And so you try to do that. And I think a lot of times people that are just getting into the voiceover world, they're so eager to please and prove that they can do it that they'll mistreat their voice in an effort to try to show like, oh, I can do it. No, I got it.
And the next day, your voice is much just hoarse, like you can't even do it.
If it's just a day,
You
yeah,
pretty much turn into Ariel from Little Mermaid, where she just listens to her voice literally a day.
and make Ursula very happy. Yeah, I was working on this game called Rage, and I did not take care of my voice, and I didn't take breaks, and I didn't tell them I needed to take a break, and I lost my voice. Couldn't even whisper for 9 days. So nothing, literally not a sound would come out. If I even tried, nothing would come out for 9 days. And so after that, I was like, nope, got to take care of the voice. Because the thing is like, if you want a career in it, what good? You can't have a career if you destroy your voice.
Yeah, you
So,
can,
yeah.
That's as I was talking with another actor, it's like, just like art, you're putting a lot of work into your voice. You're using your voice as that instrument, that, the pencil in a sense.
Yeah, and you've only got one, so you probably want to take care of it.
I've seen behind the scenes stories of like where for video games, like for example, God of War, how they were wanting Anthony McDowell to do multiple takes of the one character that had like only a few short lines. Even just like imagine even short lines or just a few lines, they imagine they take multiple takes.
Yeah, it depends on that goes back to the production in terms of like how conscientious are they of what they need and what they want, and have they devised a situation that makes it comfortable for the actor to get to that finish line for you. So like for me, I'm directing a Sony feature right now, anime feature, and the lead character has a ton of yelling, big yells. We're talking like one of these yells must have been like 7 seconds straight, full blown. And so
I hope they took their voice, because that can really, even like singers,
Yeah.
they use their voice a lot, especially like death metal, like
yeah.
that gurgling where I've heard sometimes their throats will fade.
Well, what we did was I tallied up all of their reactions, all of their yells, and they have X number of sessions, and I sprinkled those yells into across all their sessions, so they're not just saving it till the end. They're not doing it at the beginning. We're doing it a little bit at a time
And that
throughout the
helps, because
sessions.
You've been in their shoes before. You know
Yeah.
what it's like to go to that where you can almost lose your voice.
I've had the bloody throat, so I don't want to do that again.
You don't want that. You don't want
Yeah.
that to be on that. 'Cause,
Yeah.
they could be gone for, and then production is like put on hold.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So let's try to avoid that.
One last question: what last minute advice would you just want to throw out there to those who are listening and watching this?
Advice for people that want to get into voiceover, I would say, because there's so much. Speaking of universes, it's vast, and aspects of what you want to get into are vast. I would say, the best superpower you can have is accurately and realistically know your strengths and weaknesses. A lot of times I feel like we are told that we're perfect as we are. You're great. You can do, wherever you're at is awesome. And that's not necessarily, I get the idea behind that, but that's not the most beneficial for your growth. Because if you're perfect how you are, then why would you grow? Why would everything you do is right? No, I mess up all the time. I mess up Probably every day I do something that I mess up on. So, but if you understand that and you don't judge it as good or bad because you're not perfect, but you just understand these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses. It's all in the way you phrase it. So, for example, a hammer can be a great hammer, but it's a terrible screwdriver. But it doesn't want to be a screwdriver. It's going to be the best hammer it can be. So if you know your strengths, if you're like, man, I can hit that nail really hard and really well. Whenever I need a hammer, that's the one I'm going to go for. If you need a screwdriver, that's not me. Doesn't mean you're less than a perfect hammer. You're just not a good screwdriver. So you got to know your strengths and weaknesses, because so many times people shoot themselves in the foot by going out for every single thing. Well, maybe they're right for 3 of the 4 things. They don't like. I remember I was auditioning this role, and an actress was like, she was in this age demographic, and this role was in a very different age demographic. And sometimes people can go into those different ranges. I play kids all the time, play old men all the time. The different range. And this actress thought that the demographic they were at, they could do this other type of voice, and absolutely 100% could not. No. And so, but they didn't know that. And so that, in that instance, hurt them. But they don't consciously.
They don't think they're like, oh, I can do whatever. I can like climb the mountains.
Yeah. And there are people, and again, exceptions to every rule. But that's why you got to know your strengths and your weaknesses. So
If you're starting out, do what you know you can do, because there are these actors like you and the others who have like been doing this for so long. You know your range.
yeah.
And when someone's starting out, they don't know their range. They think, well, I can do this, I can do this. Like, no, it's like, it doesn't hurt to try, but you also got to know your limits, because if you go above your limit, next thing you know, you're physically, mentally exhausted, and you won't be able to do it for a while.
And you're going to be wondering why you're not making any headway, because you're going. It's like that saying. I forget the exact saying, but it's something like, the novice thinks they have 1,000 tools. The master knows they have one. You know, it's that kind of thing. And so that dynamic. And I think it's just knowing your strengths and weaknesses.
Well, Todd, thank you so much.
So I'm here with Adam. How do you pronounce your last name? Crowsdale. Okay. How are you enjoying the con? And how is this your first time in Oregon?
First time in Oregon. Yeah, very beautiful city. The state looked amazing as well as I flew over it. And first time at the con. The con has been absolutely fantastic. The food in this town is amazing.
We have a wide variety of food
here. Yeah, and tasty. And I believe that the place is quite haunted, and I'm here at Halloween, so what could be better?
So, Adam, for those who may not be familiar with you, mind telling them what you've done and how long you've been doing it for?
Yeah, I am, I guess in America, it makes me laugh though, but I'm what they call a multi-hyphenate in a way. I've done a lot of stage acting when I was in the UK, and some TV and film. But since I've moved across to the United States, and I've lived here for about 15 years now, it's been predominantly on-screen stuff, which has been television shows like Rain and Preacher and Supernatural and stuff like that. My most recent TV show was called Monarch. It was a country western family, Susan Sarandon and Trace Adkins. So that was a lot of fun. But I've also been doing like quite a lot of film, and got somehow found myself, and rather delightfully, in the voiceover world, which I've really been enjoying. Lots of video games, lots of animated shows, quite a lot of anime, but actually it's American anime. It's Castlevania and Blood of Zeus, those types of things.
Oh, Blood of Zeus?
Yeah, I was Apollo in Blood of Zeus, yeah.
And I know a lot of people are probably best known you as the voice of Ignis from Final Fantasy 15. Now, if you don't mind me asking, how did you come about getting a role such for iconic, everyone's favorite food cooking chauffeur, basically?
I know it was basically just going through the rigors of auditioning in LA. Came across a wonderful man by the name of Keith Farley, who is obviously the director of Final Fantasy 15, the English version. And we sort of fell into sync quite quickly. He liked the read that I was giving. Initially, I had an idea that Ignis was quite a lot like John Cleese. He was very exasperated and very sort of over the top, and I did it that way. And then I was called back in, and Keith sort of said, "Listen, mate, can you just be a bit more Bond about it?" So I was like, "All right, mate, I'll be a bit more James Bond." But so there is an undertow of humor and sort of his very sort of dry wit, which is obviously there in the writing. But yeah, on the face of it, he's unflappable.
So, what kind of impact has this had on you? I mean, you said you've done stage acting and everything, and you go from that to voice acting. Has there been any different similarities and differences as well, along with all that you've done?
Yeah, I mean they're very different disciplines. Theatre, obviously, it's blood, sweat, and tears, and you do a lot of work for not so much money, but a lot of technical know-how you gather from that. And there's a lot of immediate feedback from your audiences. But you are doing 8 shows a week, and it's a lot of work. Right. And then when you get into on-camera stuff, your schedules vary actually. So you can have incredibly busy periods, or you can just be dipping in and out here and there. You've always got to be ready, and there's much less rehearsal in on camera stuff. With the voiceover stuff, it's sort of amazing because you arrive in the booth. And often you work, well, as in the case of Final Fantasy 15 and a lot of other shows and video games, you're not given the script at all ahead of time because the IP is so.
Especially with something like Square Enix. And everything.
Yes, it's highly classified. Really, if any of it gets out, then it could really spoil the whole thing. So you arrive and you go in the booth, and then you flip open crisp new page, and that is the first time you get to see it. Really, a few minutes before you get to deliver the lines.
And there's sometimes you're given the lines you're not too told who the character is.
Yeah, I mean you can have that. So, for instance, I did a full length feature called Batman Ninja.
Oh, that's right. You voiced Alfred Pennyworth.
That's right, and also Nightwing.
Oh,
So,
yeah, I
and I was
didn't know that was you as Nightwing.
yeah. So and nor did I. So I came in to do Alfred, and then the director let me do that for a bit, and he said, "Hey, how would you feel about being Nightwing as well?" And I said, "Are you kidding? Of course I'll be Nightwing as well." So that's the thing. You can get things sort of sprung on you, and then you've just got to roll with it and have things in your back pocket to be ready. And I find that delightful, but I also find it delightful not having to necessarily learn all the lines. There you are. I mean, what could be better? You come into work and you open up a script, and then you're just like, "Cool, I'm just gonna start performing it now." Like without having to learn, because obviously learning lines takes a while.
A few more questions. I know that, as I've mentioned with other guests this week, that just like art, voice acting is an art itself. Your voice is your tool. You're using it for many different things, and I imagine you yourself have to have done many ranges of voices, whether it's screaming, yelling, crying, stuff like that. What kind of advice would you want to give to someone who is getting into acting and they have to do roles like that? Like, what's the best way you prepare for the louder roles?
Yeah. Well, just to add to that a little bit, I think practice accents and practice voices constantly. If you hear anything that's interesting to you, sort of grab it and put it in a file in your head, because often you're asked to just pull a character out on the day. But when it comes to loud stuff, there's a couple of technical things. One is if you're at home and you're auditioning in your own little booth, as you probably know through dealing with microphones, you can, it can be, yeah, you can.
Project a lot.
Yeah, and it can gate and it can sort of burn out at the top. So you have to develop a technique really whereby it appears that you're raising your voice or getting aggressive, but without actually going there to the full level of decibels that you can muster. But when you get in the studio, the engineer is right there and he's modulating your ability to shout, and so you can go very, very loud indeed. And in order to do that, there's a few sort of tinctures and tonics and magic potions that you can take just to lubricate your throat and keep it safe. But generally, after a 4-hour session of battlefield efforts, you're tasting copper pennies at the end of it.
I'm sure you've had like the throat bleed too moments.
Yeah, not quite as bad as that, but you can taste blood somewhere in your basic biology at that point.
Now, I know. Have you ever done like American speaking roles for any of the stuff you've been in?
Yeah, Nightwing is one.
Like I said, I did not know.
Yeah, no, of course, yeah, and I'm glad. See, there we go. So thankfully, I got away with it, my American accent. But yeah, I've done a couple of films, American accent, a couple of maybe TV shows, and a fair few sort of animated things as well with an American accent. So yeah.
I know for like people like Gary Oldman, he had to retrain his voice to start sounding British again because he had done so many American speaking roles over the years.
And he's a bit of a master of accents. So he's very, very good. Poor Austin Butler suffered the same sort of thing. You heard about that?
Oh yeah.
After Elvis,
Oh yeah.
he had to have a speech therapist.
He had that like because I know there are people who do that method acting so much that that's like their normal voiced that for a long time.
Yeah, I think he was so immersed in the role that he couldn't come out of the old Elvis drawl. So he needed a voice coach to bring him back to his normal speaking voice. Because you'll see in his interviews, for about a year after Elvis came out, he was still kind of being interviewed like this, answering his questions
Have
like
you ever
Elvis.
had to deal with any stuff like that?
No, thankfully I haven't. I'm a big fan of the method, and I respect it massively. Daniel Day-Lewis is one of my favorite actors.
Yes.
You know, incredible range. But I have to say, maybe it was Jack Nicholson who said, "Whatever works for you, that is the method." Right, and I like that very much because I've known I've tried to some extent being method in the way that Dan Day-Lewis does it, but for much smaller periods, and it's exhausting. It's utterly exhausting. If you're going to try, or if you're planning on being that person when the cameras are not rolling, and when you go home at night and living the character for weeks or months on end, on your psyche, on your family, like it's just a bit weird, frankly. Like Dan can do it probably because everyone around him knows that that's his process, but it's exhausting. So I think you dip into what works for you. If it's something that you need muscle memory for, whether it's a voice or whether it's a physicality or whatever, yes, use it. But I like to be able to take the character or the physicalization of the voice off at the end of the day at work and go home as myself.
You're clocked out. You don't have to do that anymore. You're basically, go in, do what you need to do, then go home at the end of the day. But I know sometimes you have like those long sessions because they want so many takes of that one specific line too.
Yeah. And also if you're playing someone like I don't know, a psychopathic killer or someone like deeply on the fringes of society who's quite strange, do you want that bleeding into your psyche like very, very deeply? So when you leave and go out for a night on the town with your mates, do you want that behavior to be, I don't know that it's healthy. I think ritualistically you should be able to take the character off at the end of the day and put it on again the next morning. So for instance, I was on a television show in the UK called Poirot, which is Agatha Christie, and the central character is a guy called Hercule Poirot. The Brits will probably know about this character. He's quite famous in Europe, and the guy playing him is a guy by the name of David Suchet, and he plays him magnificently. And David, on my first day, we were doing this sort of film for TV called The Cat Among the Pigeons, and I was sitting with David, and he said, "Listen, I'm a company man. I love being around other actors, and please come to me with any questions or hang out with me. That's great." But he says, "I just need to give you a word of warning. The moment the moustache goes on, I will become Hercule Poirot." And he makes no apology. He says, "I've tried not doing it, but I have to do it because I've been caught out before, and I've sort of fallen flat on my face trying to just be myself in the whole regalia." That's it. And we were sitting in hair and makeup, and we were talking about football, and he was just like, "Yeah, Adam, this, that, and the next thing." And the person was gluing on his moustache, and halfway through the moustache getting glued on, he just was suddenly in the Belgian accent, and he was like, "And of course, my favorite team is, and I was just like, holy mackerel, you weren't kidding, mate." But he went there.
There are some people that take that method seriously, and then there's like those moments where it's like the method takes over their whole life, just like that, just people just kind of just pull themselves away from that.
That's it, mate. Yeah. It's everybody's got their own particular process, and I think you've just got to honor the process that works for you to get it done when the camera's rolling.
One more question. What kind of advice would you want to give someone who may want to get into this line of work, whether it be stage, film, or voice acting? Because in a way, yes, there are some similarities, but there's also differences as well to that.
Yeah, I think the first thing I'd say is really you have to be very passionate about it, and obviously people try things on and they see if it's for them or if it's not. But what I mean by this is that the work is very feast or famine. You can receive a lot, or it can be like crickets. And you have to be ready in the crickets time to not spiral out. So you have to have a certain amount of grit if you want this sort of a life. It's a freelancer life. Sometimes you're going to be working, other times you're not, and there's a lot of not working. And you have to make a life for yourself. And what I say to any sort of aspiring actors, a lot of actors, they pin their emotional happiness on whether or not they're working as an actor. Yeah, I'm working. Fantastic. Life is great. No, I'm not. I haven't. I feel terrible. I haven't worked in 6 months. You have to create a life that you love to live and be an actor. I think that's the first thing to say.
Even like your most seasoned actors, they may get a lot of work, but then you got some actors that are just starting out, and they'll still need to work that 9 to 5 just to
That's it. Have a survival job that pays the bills so that you don't have to freak out, and then enjoy the craft. And look, I think it's a magnificent it's a magnificent craft because you get to spend time with people and really sort of find out about what it is to be human, all aspects of being human. And I think it's sort of a privilege to be able to do that.
Well, I think that should be good. Adam, thank you so much